Okay. First of all, just want to thank everybody for being on this call. And not only that, just want to thank you for your coverage this year, right? It's a unique year for all of us, not the least of which is for you guys, covering our team. And so thank you as well for dealing with all the stuff that you've had to deal with in covering an NFL franchise and, giving the fans and Colts Nation the information that's pertinent that they want to hear. So, just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that. Certainly miss seeing you guys. Miss seeing you guys just only from a distance down there as you guys are watching practice. But hopefully these times are passing sooner rather than later. But thank you for your contribution. It was a unique year. 2020 season was a unique year. And I just wanted to start out by making a statement about, what our team, before we get into the football aspect, I just want to make a brief statement on what our organization and our team did as far as social justice issues and the importance of that. It's very much part of our story this year. So I think at a year-end press conference, it's very fitting to at least acknowledge some of the things that happened in that regard for our team. It's not going to be a comprehensive statement, just a brief snapshot about why as a team we committed to this, why this is so important to us and why we've taken a stand and why we want to make a difference. Start by saying that I read a quote this week from Bernice King, daughter of MLK. She said, "We need to stop saying this is not who we are in America. Indeed, this is not who and what the U.S. should be, but denial won't make the injustices and the inhumane ideologies less so. We can't change without truth." As I read that quote this week, it really hit home with me. It made me think of another quote by an all-time great football coach. So I hope I'm doing Bernice King justice by making the correlation to this quote by a football coach who's famous for saying, "We are who our record says we are." The context of that quote was a coach and a leader who was holding himself and the team accountable, not allowing the team to justify its losses in the effort to soften the blow of the truth about who they were. I mean, we know how this works in sports. If we have a bad year, we say to ourselves, we had a lot of injuries, tough schedule. Officials kind of went against us this year. We got some bad breaks. And sometimes the reason we do that is because, we don't want to face the truth about what our record says we are. But what this quote says is we are who our record says we are. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I hear Bernice King saying in her quote, that we are who our record says we are. And I think she's inferring to the fact that we need leadership in this country who will be accountable and stop allowing us to justify the losses in this area. We have to face the truth of who we are. And I believe that the truth that she speaks about, it starts with us, with our nation admitting that 2020 was a losing season in the area of social justice. I'm not saying we were over. Sure, there were some wins and people who made sacrifices, but too many losses, not enough progress, and some really big losses, resulting in a losing season. Furthermore, the truth is it's not just 2020 she's speaking about, but the reality is we're looking at hundreds of years of losing seasons on this most important of issues. Again, it's important to acknowledge there's a lot of big wins in there, a lot of people who made big sacrifices, but at the end of the day, we're not making the progress and winning as much as we should. It's time to start winning. And for sure, we'll never go undefeated. This issue is too hard and it's too complex. But we can and we must win. We need leaders in the area of government, business, education, arts, etc., who will hold themselves accountable and their teams accountable and stop allowing us to justify the losses in this area. Our anthem stance this year, which we did where I knelt at the beginning of the year for 4 games and then stood. We're locking arms, and then again in the playoffs. That was all part of the plan, and all part of what we as a team and as an organization and as players, coaches wanted to do. The kneeling, as we put out our statement earlier, I'm just reemphasizing this. It was a twofold gesture. The first was as far as the anthem, step up to show, don't be passive in this area and don't be neutral. We need people to step up. Each one of us need to step up, particularly white leadership. And then the kneeling. We said the kneeling is not in defiance. Kneeling is an act of, it's a posture of humility, acknowledging the losing record and that we can do better. You know, our organization and team, starting with the players, we're really proud of, you know, how active they were, put together a comprehensive plan for how we were going to serve in the community. Ownership was involved, coaches, players, the whole organization serving and leading in our Indiana communities and in our hometown communities around the country. We're determined to make a change, one play at a time, one first down at a time, one touchdown at a time. I think the NFL PSA is apt, you know, keep moving the chains, move the chains. Lastly, to be clear, just want to say we're not protesting the flag. We're not protesting the men and women in uniform. In fact, personally, I'm in awe of our military and the sacrifices they made, our first responders and men and women in uniform, for the many great sacrifices they made. And if we want to talk about records, our military record is second to none. And I respect that and acknowledge that. But as great as our military is and the men and women in our uniform, the bottom line is, in our opinion, we have to admit that we're not where we should be. We're not where we're supposed to be. And we're not winning and keeping pace. We're losing ground. We're not gaining ground. We're losing ground on this most important of issues. And the reality is it tarnishes our record as a nation to not be able to win in this most important of areas. It starts with respect and dignity. It starts with administering justice equitably for all people, not based on the color of their skin, but based on the content of their character. Let me transition. I just felt like that was important. I talked to that. I basically said that to the team this morning. I told them I was going to share that with you on their behalf. That's part of our story, and just thought that was important to share. Just making the transition to recapping the game and the season. Difficult loss. It's going to sting. It's just the way, it's just every loss stings, but particularly a postseason playoff loss sting worse, because you're at the top of the mountain. You're at that final summit to the top. You've made the terrain of some of the most difficult things, getting through a long and grueling season. You put yourself in position to be one of the few teams, one of the 14 teams that have a chance to get to the top. We believe we had the team to do that. We believed we could do that. We believe we had the coaches and players to do that, and we came up short. I told the guys, excuse me, I said, you know, I love and respect them, appreciate their contribution, but we're a bunch of crazy men and women here, because we're going on this journey. We're getting ourselves ready for this journey every year where there's 32 teams and only one's going to end up satisfied. Only one of those 32 teams going to end up satisfied. The rest of us are going to be disappointed. So we're disappointed and hurt. Make no mistake about it. We got one goal, and that's to win a world championship. And then after that, it's to win more. But by not reaching our goal, it doesn't mean that, you know, we didn't gain anything. It doesn't mean that we didn't grow. I believe we did. So, and it'll help us as we begin that journey again next year. So I'll open it up to questions from there.
All right, we'll start with Mike Chappell.
When ready. Just sort of personnel bookkeeping things in your exit interviews, Frank. Have you talked to Anthony Costanzo, and do you have any idea if we went through this last year? Do you know what his plans are?
Talked with him briefly today, said we'd catch up back. You know, I mean, it was a flurry of activities. So, hey, let's talk to you soon. So we'll hopefully get with him soon, pretty quickly here.
Thank you.
You got it.
Mike Wells.
Hey, Frank, this is going to be a topic of conversation the entire offseason, your quarterback position, especially when you look at Jacoby and Phillip being free agents. As you look at how the NFL has transitioned to the quarterback spot with more mobile quarterbacks, guys who can move in the pocket, and the fact that Phillip will be 40 years old in November, can you guys win, take it to another level if you were to bring Phillip back?
Excuse me, Mike. Absolutely. I mean, because the way that happens is everybody gets incrementally better. Everybody gets incrementally better. And maybe, maybe at 39, going to be 40, maybe that's harder physically, but there's other ways you can keep getting better. And I really still be physically, he could do that, so, and even you mentioned Jacoby. I mean, it just makes me think, Mike, I mean, in general, I mean, let's face it, I know you all understand this and would expect me to say this because it's true, is, what I said yesterday is 100% true. As I sit here right now, and please don't read anything into this. This is every coach sitting in my position, I think, feels like this, or if they don't, I don't know what's wrong with them, because this team is close. I mean, I'll get real emotional real quick if I think about how close I am with these guys. And so I sit here today, I want them all back. I want every guy on our roster back. I really do. I think we have everybody. I think we had everybody in the locker room this year we needed to win a world championship. But, I'm 59 years old. I've been in the NFL 27 years. I know it doesn't work that way. There's change. There's always going to be change. So as I sit here today, I want everybody back. And I think Phillip still has a lot of good football. I think Jacoby's a great player, and we could go on and on. TY, we can keep going down the list. I can't go there right now because it's just too fresh, too emotional with these guys. We know the realities of this league is there's change. Change happens, and these guys are pros. Everybody understands it.
I'm not trying to add to your emotions on this one, Frank. So obviously, if Phillip comes out and says, "Hey, I want to play an 18th season. I wanted to be with the Colts," you would want Phillip Rivers to be your starting quarterback next year?
Yeah, I said as I sit here right now, yes, I want Phillip Rivers to be my starting quarterback next year.
All right, we'll go Joel Erickson.
Frank, is that something that could change in terms of conversations with Chris and Jim and what the organization decides?
Yes, it could change. I mean, that's the NFL. I mean, it's the NFL, and this isn't a one-man show. Yeah, I'm the head coach, but we got to do what's best for the team. And if as an organization, obviously as the head coach and GM, and ownership, Mr. Irsay, those are the three primary decision makers. As we sit down and talk through every option, about Phillip and what other options are out there, that'll all get discussed. But I think what I'm really proud of for Phillip is that he earned the right to be in that discussion.
Okay, Zach Kiefer.
Frank, I know it's still raw, the season ending. What were you guys missing this year? It felt like you had everything you needed to win, and yesterday was like a story of your season. What was that little bit that was missing, and were maybe you just never able to find it?
I think it's the accumulation of a couple things, just a little bit more consistency. Whatever our consistency grade was, and I know a lot of you guys have asked me questions about that, both offensively and defensively, how halves of football and stretches. And my answer is always the same answer. Yeah, we're trying our hardest to be consistent on every play and on every series, but we just need to be a little bit more consistent. And then we need to be a little bit better in some of the critical situations, third down, red zone primarily. Always looking to get better in those two areas. I think how we did on the turnovers, how we did on explosive plays on both sides of the ball were all pluses. We talk about it. Penalties. We went from being the least penalized team in the league in 19 to, we were low this year. So we need to get that back where it needs to be. But I think, Zach, the short answer is, or at least wrapping up this answer, is a little bit more consistent in all areas, but then make some significant improvement in key areas like third down and red zone.
Kevin Bowen.
Frank, I know in the 24 hours after the season, it's hard to answer this, but you specifically as a head coach, as a play caller, where do you feel like you need to improve?
Just continuing to refine the process. I looked at yesterday, obviously look at the tape, go through everything. Had a little bit more time this morning at the beginning to, even get a chance to read everything out there that, people are saying and what comments and, just keep learning and growing, keep refining. I feel like I'm 3 years into it. I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like I've not arrived. But I look back to the end of the half scenario yesterday and I'm just reminded of a couple things, like the 3rd and 1 call, that play call, we toss it. Well, we hadn't tossed it all year in that scenario. Oh, it breaks a tendency, but the easier call would have been running up the middle behind our great offensive line. And, but I didn't make that call. So I look back on it now because the other one didn't work. Yeah, I wish I would have done it. Would have that one worked? I don't know. I mean, the play that I would have called up the middle, I called on the 2-point play from the 1 and it got stuffed. So I don't know if it gets stuffed there or not, but I learned from that. I grow from that. The 4th down decision to go for it. My first instinct was to kick a field goal. There was a timeout and I said, let's kick it. You guys know, we've talked about this a lot. I say, what do the analytics say? The analytics say it's a strong go, but that's not enough for me. I got to look down on the call sheet and I got to see a call that I know that I feel like in my gut that is going to work. I like every call on the call sheet, but there's certain calls that are crunch time calls. And we sit and talk about as a staff, with Philip, are we comfortable with this play with the game on the line? Is this our play? That was one of the plays that was a play that we were willing to bet on. And so I went from a gut instinct of kick a field goal to no. We got strong confirmation on the numbers. We got a strong play that's one of our crunch time plays that we believe in. And then because we had a timeout, was able to get Philip involved, on how I'm making sure, confirming he felt comfortable with the play. And we kind of had that trifecta of belief and conviction and went for it. I looked at the numbers today. I had our analytics guys, they all ran the numbers without getting into all the details. It's a fine line. There's a fine line. I've been to 6 Super Bowls, won 1 world championship, and all I can say is right or wrong as far as the decision, which can be debated, and I understand it, this is what I think it takes to be a world champion. And we're just playing to get better and to win a world championship. And the one time that been there multiple times, and the mindset and what it takes, that's what I think it takes. And can I get better at it? Yes, I can get better at it. I got to maintain cutting edge thinking with old school experience, and need to be, as a friend told me, need to keep the ball on the low side of the low side of the hole every now and then. And you don't always have to miss on the high side. So that was a fair reminder to me. I like that analogy, and it was a fair reminder. So those are the ways you live and learn.
And then one follow-up, you and Chris, I think, have used the phrase sustained success, trying to achieve that. Putting Philip, I guess, to the side for a second, how important do you think it is to address long-term quarterback in a pretty aggressive manner this offseason?
It's obviously a critical position. I have a lot of confidence in our ability as an organization to how, obviously the leadership that Chris brings, as him being the GM. Obviously I feel confident in my ability to help lead that. And then I feel like we have an owner who understands the landscape and will give us what we need and will be involved in the discussions on such a critical position. So we're looking for an answer we got to make the answer for next year. But like you said, because of Philip's age, that's certainly has to be in the perspective and discussion.
Jim Aiello?
Yeah, Frank, you just spoke to your Super Bowl background and being a part of so many teams that have gone there. What was it about this team, and maybe when did you kind of figure out that it was one of those teams that you believed in, I guess, in the same way that you probably believed in those other 6 teams?
I mean, first it's multiple things, but number one, you need playmakers. You need good football players. I mean, you need good football players, and I believe this locker room is full of good football players, guys who are and work hard and they love the process. But then there needs to be a special chemistry, I think, a closeness and a bond. And I think I know this team has that. So those are real key factors. But and then you got to have guys where it's not too big for them. It's not too big for them, and believe that and see the big picture and have that belief that you can make it to the top.
All right, George Bremer.
Coach, obviously you and Philip have a great relationship that goes back years, and so there won't be pressure really put on either side. But is in your mind or in the organization's mind, is there a date that you need to know by? Is there a deadline here at all?
Yeah, George, that's a fair question. I sitting here, I can't give you the answer to that. That's something Chris and I are going to have to sit down and talk through here. And, I'll lean on Chris's perspective as far as, timetable, and, we'll talk that through. But those are all discussions that will be coming up in the weeks ahead.
Okay, we'll go 3 more. Phil B.
Hey, Coach. Acknowledging it's an emotional day, emotional time. And if I'm asking for something, it's too soon, I understand. But I'm wondering in the weeks ahead, when you sort through maybe grief, frustration, disappointment, and you come out of it, can you take comfort in the fact that your team accomplished so much this year and it's considered an up and coming team that's trending in the right direction, and you push the number 2 seed to the limit in the playoffs and show what you're made of?
Yeah, there's no doubt, Phil. And, one of the statements that I made to the guys today was, when we get back here in April, or whether we're virtual or whatever it is, and we start meeting again, there's going to be 32 teams. They're all going to be 0-0, but not everybody's really starting at the same vantage point. I think our team has the foundation, is starting on higher ground because of some of the things that we've accomplished in the last few years, and certainly this past year. And so I think you have to acknowledge that. And I think that while we'll be disappointed we didn't reach our goal of winning a world championship, it doesn't mean that we didn't make gains. It doesn't mean that we didn't grow. We did make gains and we did grow, but we're still disappointed that we didn't win a world championship.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, Stephen Holder.
That's actually a good segue to my question. Just theoretically, the quarterback, whatever your quarterback situation ends up being or decision ends up being, because you are a team that is at that place, that's, you're hoping ready to take a very big step. How much does that play into where you go with a quarterback? I mean, if you were a rebuilding team, you might have a different approach to your quarterback situation, I imagine. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah, I think that's what makes it so complex. It's not an easy decision, and it is a very close-knit team. And in particular with Philip is such a strong leader that, I mean, when you think about the impact he was able to have on this team coming in a virtual off season, in a closeness, and I know Philip really well, and Philip's love for his teammates, that's what keeps him coming back. I really believe that's, the competition, but it's his love for his teammates. And I know he's been on a lot of great teams over the years, but I know that he felt it this year from the guys in this locker room. So there's a closeness to that, and there's something about that. You want to keep that together, and you want to build off of that. And those things are strongly considered in every decision, but there's also obviously other things to consider as well. And ultimately, when changes are made, And I don't know if I'm getting off your topic here, Stephen, but, you know, we do count on the guys understanding really at every position that, you know, everybody understands, coaches and players, how this business works. You know, that sometimes there's factors that there's just change is going to happen at a position because it's a moving target.
Okay, we'll go Mike Chappell.
Frank, I don't know how much you can mention or you want to, but can you share what your exit meeting with Philip was like? Can you share anything that went on?
Well, you know, we talked last night at length a little bit. It was pretty emotional. Yeah, it was pretty emotional. So just, yeah.
Will you have, I was afraid you might get kind of this way, but is it going to be hard, or do you have to eliminate the emotion and the connection with what's really a business decision?
Yeah, I do think it's possible to, you know, not be called, you know, to maintain the emotion, but to have the maturity to understand. And that's one thing about Philip now. You guys, you know, even though it's only been 1 year, like he understands. He understands. And, you know, I can just say that as we talked last night, you know, I think we both know how we feel about each other and about the year that he had. And we also know that this business is what it is. And so we know the natural tendency is to sit here and say, hey, let's, you know, this is great stuff. Let's keep this rolling. And that's how we feel. And I hope that's how he feels. But you have to digest, you have to pull away and get perspective. You have to think about the whole thing. And maybe that's the right answer at the end of the day. And there might be a good chance that's the right answer. We'll have to see, but it's just too early to tell right now. Just know that, you know, the love and respect is real. And what he did this year was pretty incredible.
Thanks,
All
Frank.
right, last one, Kevin Bowen.
Frank, if AC does hang it up, do you think Quentin could be the long-term answer at left tackle, or do you feel like that's a position finding that next long-term left tackle is something that probably should come outside the building?
I think that'll be, if AC chooses to hang it up, you know, I think discussing Quentin as an option out there is certainly a realistic option, you know, that we would, you know, Chris and I have already had that conversation. Obviously, when AC got hurt, you know, it's like, hey, well, let's take a look at Quentin. You know, I mean, maybe that's the real option. Chris, you know, I'll let Chris go into more of the detail on that when he gets with you guys on Thursday. But yeah, that would certainly be an option. But like every other decision, you got to look at all options and consider all factors.